How are you all? Welcome to Cosfeach. So we are back with a brand new movie on what if Naruto became Simple Janitor, Naruto x RWBY movie. But before we start, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Now let's begin the story. Within the Huntsman and Huntress's School of Beacon, located on a cliff at the edge of the city of Vale, there are 4 heroines in training that are attempting to enjoy their staycation. A staycation from school. But why, you ask? Well, a few days ago, a small horde of Grimm had broken into the city, and damage control was currently being taken care of by older students and faculty. This left the younger first years with 2 options. Either go home until the school reopens for the vital festival, or stick around and wait for the slight possibility of a mission to be sent your way. The rookie team of RWBY had chosen the latter, and thus, had an entire recreational room to themselves for a better portion of the day. However, after 3 hours of the old cartoon sugar rush, one member had had enough. Yang Xiaolong had a limit to how many times she could hear a bubbly pop song that lasted less than a minute, and that limit had been reached with the end of the last episode. "Ruby, I am done asking." The buxom blonde teenager glared her formerly lilac and currently red eyes at a shorter, paler girl who held a device in a death grip. A gloved hand reached out, palm up and teeth ground together. "Give me the remote." "But we just got to the 3rd season's cliffhanger. I have to see what happens next." Ruby Rose protested with a small whine. Silver eyes glanced over at the white-themed girl seated on the couch, content with watching the 2 sisters fight. A plan formulated instantly. "Weiss, go long." "What?" the girl managed to ask before the object that had caused the fight suddenly flew at her face, startled by the sudden inclusion into the sibling spat. Weiss Schnee couldn't react in time to avoid being hit in the face by the item. It bounced off and she put her hands over the impact. "Arg. Ruby. I told you to go long." Ruby complained from where she was stuck in a headlock under Yang's arm. This was done by the blonde to keep Ruby from zipping over to the thrown device and snatching it out of the air. The remote flipped as it descended before the final member of the team held her hand out and caught it expectantly from where she sat in the lone armchair. The dark leather-bound book in her other hand's grasp lowered and 2 amber cat-like eyes stared at the sisters tiredly. "Do you know how hard it is to read when you're both acting like this?" Blake Belladonna did nothing to hide her mild annoyance, but masterfully concealed the amusement she felt over observing their argument. "Yang." Ruby started it. Give me that," Weiss said as she snatched the remote from her teammate's hand. Blake shrugged and went back to her book while the white-haired girl changed the channel. Yang sighed in relief and tears poured down Ruby's face. "Traitor." She pointed an accusing finger at Weiss. "You are a traitor to the Sugar Republic. And you're killing far too many brain cells with that garbage," Weiss coolly retorted while she flipped through the channels. She stopped when she came across what appeared to be the school's headmaster on the television. Professor Ospin is on." "Boring." Yang groaned as she plopped down on the other end of the couch, Ruby pouting beside her in begrudging agreement. "Let's see what's on song screen." "Please, they don't even play music anymore," Weiss huffed. "All it is now are those horrendously scripted reality shows, with nothing but drunk buffoons that look good." "You say it like it's such a horrible thing." "Shush, I am trying to watch." A man with messy gray hair and a pair of spectacles examined the resume in his hands. Quite a lot of odd jobs for one the same age as the students who first enter his academy. "Okay, what is this?" Blake asked, setting her book down and watching with mild curiosity as various jobs on the resume highlighted. Weiss tried to pull up a guide, but nothing happened. She furrowed her brows and then attempted to change the station. The screen hardly flickered. "I don't know." Weiss frowned. "On it." Yang whipped out her scroll and began to search for the title of the show they'd found. As soon as she finished entering the search, her scroll illuminated and a detailed sketch of an eyeball appeared on her scroll screen, an audio bar below it that lit up as a voice came through. Hello? Is this thing on?" "Hello?" Yang looked at her teammates, then back at her scroll. "Yeah." "Oh, cool, didn't think this would actually work here. May I ask whom I am speaking to?" "Yang Xiaolong." Lilac eyes narrowed slightly. "Who are you? And what's with the eyeball?" Ruby chirped. Xiaolong. Why'd I know? Here we are. Universe RVA 4. No. KBC 24? Oh, of course. BB15 RTV3 Prime. That's where you are. The voice, a male one, muttered, "And to answer your question, Ms. Rose, the eyeball is my symbol. You have those there, do you not?" "What did he just say?" Weiss asked. "The eyeball is his symbol," Ruby began. "No, not that. The random assortment of letters and numbers." Weiss glared at the girl before she glared at the phone. She idly noticed the television had paused. "Are you using coordinates to spy on us?" Now, no need for alarm, Ms. Schnee," My coordinates can hardly do anything of that nature. The only way we can communicate is through your device, and as to your question, Ms. Xiaolong, my name is unimportant. If you must call me anything, you may call me the seer. Blake's bow twitched and she looked over at the scroll. You're a prophet? In a manner of speaking, Ms. Belladonna, yes, I suppose you could call me that. The seer let a chuckle out. Now, how did you all and I cross paths? Let me see, aha. You've stumbled across one of my channels. You spy on our headmaster in dramatic lighting often? Yang asked. Well, no, you see, how'd I put this? Bluntly is best, I suppose. The seer sighed. What you are viewing is an alternate dimension. I am hanging up now, creeper. Yang put her thumb on the disconnect button. The call continued and she frowned. I said I was hanging up. Yes, I heard you. Unfortunately, Ms. Xiaolong, closing the links between two dimensions is hardly that simple, believe me. I wish it were that simple, the seer grumbled. As I was saying, what you see before you is an alternate dimension. A world where you exist, but there are slight changes. How slight? Blake inquired. She got odd looks from her team and blushed lightly. What? This is like something out of Physician Inquiry. I believe the series is called there. It's not Physician Inquiry for you? Blake asked. No, or rather, a good portion of dimensions have what's called Doctor Who. That's a much better title, I concur. Excuse me, but are you two finished flirting or should I get a camera? Yang asked with a smirk. Blake sent her a glower and there was an embarrassed cough over the line. Right, the seer said sheepishly. Well, I do apologize for the intrusion, but I must continue. You've stumbled across a window to an alternate dimension of your own. There will be similarities, differences and, spoiler alert, possible outcomes of events to come. However, bear in mind that this is a fictional world compared to yours. Names, faces, places and things may be the same, but they are not real, just as to the people of that dimension, you are the fiction. So, we could see something that would happen in the future, but we can't trust it because the source is fictional, right? Eyes turned to Ruby and she pouted. What? I read comics. Precisely, Ms. Rose, the seer said. Now let me see here. You've found Dimension AF13G, Subsect J Alpha 5J. An apt title. What is? Blake asked. I believe you'd call this in your tongue just a simple janitor. Sounds like it's anything but simple, Yang drawled. That will be up to you to decide. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a few other guests who Hades. The seer's exasperated sigh could be heard with thunder in the background. Oh, wonderful, they've started to argue again. I'll leave my end open. If you have any questions, just ask. The scroll screen dimmed and the call ended. The four girls shared a look with each other before Ruby looked at Weiss. Let's see what it's about, she smiled. The four then looked at the screen as it resumed to play. All of them were things the applicant was at one point good at until he changed into another job. From what the previous employers have said, the applicant was dedicated to his work, however menial the task. That being said, he did not stop satisfying his urge to have a little fun. The man certainly knew that a young adult needed to cling on their last footholds of childhood. The man lowered the paper that held his client's job history, then leaned forward in interest, his midnight black suit's creases ever so slightly moved into their new positions. You know, in this light, Ospin doesn't seem so bad on the eye. Yang rubbed her chin. She was a judge of aesthetic character primarily, opposed to her sister who judged traits and weapons first before the looks of another person came to mind. I am going to pretend you didn't just say that, Weiss said dryly. Shush. Ruby shushed them. So, tell me why a young man, who has his whole life ahead of him, want to wash it all away in a demeaning job as a custodian? The applicant did not answer. I see. Let me rephrase that. Why are you limiting that raw potential you have as a huntsman? Huntsman? Ooh, the plot thickens. Yang, seriously, shut up. The man handed down a tablet so that the applicant could see what he saw in the younger man. It was a camera recording of what transpired several nights ago. The apprehension of two gangs in a turf war in Vale's main plaza. Among the sea of gang members, one who stood out was the applicant himself holding several bags of groceries in the middle of all the madness about to ensue. The applicant, a young man with a golden mane of spiky hair, shook his head. He crossed his arms and attempted to bounce off the question. I thought I was being interviewed whether or not I get the job. And thus ended just a simple janitor. He didn't get his dream job. Yang mumbled under her breath with a smile. Yang, Blake groaned. What? This is boring. We can barely see Ospin, let alone whoever husky voice is, Yang complained. Her scroll illuminated. To be fair, you did stumble across what could be called a trailer for a series. Who asked you? Point taken, you are, the man replied. The recording continued playing. The two mobs who were parted before had converged on the young applicant's position. Whatever words were said in between were insignificant. On screen, the young man was hounded by enemies from all around. Swords, axes, batons, and guns were drawn. The young man evaded the melee attacks without any wasted movement, then countered by disarming them one by one via the breaking of clavicles, elbows, or wrists. I stand corrected, Yang blinked. She sat back and her lips quirked into a smile. This guy doesn't sound half bad. Now, if only we could get a shot of him. He broke multiple bones to disarm his opponents, Weiss pointed out. RWBY nudged her. What? Yang and Dad fight similarly, the leader of the team whispered. Oh, Weiss blinked. She had honestly forgotten that Yang was a fight, to borrow a term Shed heard used before, junkie. When it came to the offensive, it was there that the young man showed his sloppiness. His punches weren't proper, and were akin to mindless flailing due to the fact he added too much force onto a hit that would not land. Despite it, he knew how to move in and out of range. He was quite wily too. He ducked and weaved right into their guard, and tripped them down before he stomped on their faces. Crude, but effective enough. This guy sounds like he belongs in Road Combatant, RWBY said under her breath. There was a snort from Yang's scroll that drew the four girls' eyes to it. What? Nothing, nothing, just thanking my maker for certain names, the seer replied. The headmaster stopped the recording, and continued his speech. As headmaster of this prestigious academy, I am supposed to evaluate both aspiring students as well as staff. The headmaster took a sip of his coffee, then continued after he set the mug down on the table. What boggles me is that you're the first of your age group to ever file an application to work here in my school. Most people your age who come here send their transcripts, not their resumes. Unless you're John, RWBY snickered. Did he send in a resume? Weiss asked. No, just, forget I said anything. Done. Weiss turned back to the television and missed the pout that fell on RWBY's face. And this is important. Why? The young blonde asked irritably. I am here for the job. I am not here to become a student. I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. Many would think otherwise, that you were at the right place at the right time, the headmaster said critically. You sent 100 men to jail, not a small feat for inexperienced fighters. You've potential. Boy, why waste it? Because I am not capable, because compared to them, I am nothing, because I have better things to do, because I don't need to fight Grimm to make the world a better place, the young man snarled honestly. Ozpin was not intimidated by the young monk's rising anger accentuated by his feral appearance. He's a faunus? Weiss asked. Do you always jump to that? Blake asked dryly. Her concealed ears twitched in mild aggravation. Oh, that was one time. Let it go, Blake, Weiss grumbled. She was a schnee, yes, and her trust in faunus as a whole wasn't all that great, but she trusted Blake after she learned who she really was. His attention was drawn over by a cough to a blonde woman in a white, collared, long-sleeved shirt that puffed at the wrists and revealed a sizable cleavage. A worthy adversary in the art of mammary warfare. Yang nodded while she crossed her arms under her own impressive bust. God, Yang, Blake groaned and pinched the bridge of her nose. Weiss gave the blonde a look of disgust. I don't get it, RWBY mumbled. She wore a black business skirt that ran from her thighs to just beneath her bust, where the buttons to keep it in place were. She stepped forward with footsteps signaling her every intention. The boy knew the intention a person had towards him by the footsteps they created. Loud, heavy steps with erratic rhythm signaled anger or something along the lines. Soft springs in their steps meant they were happy or at least relieved by something. This woman, she was angry. Her sharp tone easily confirmed his guess. I would not speak with that kind of attitude. Mr. Uzumaki, you are still being interviewed. It's unwise to speak to your possible employer like that. RWBY, take your hood off. Yang sighed and reached over to grab the red hood on the girl's head. If I can't see her, she can't see me, RWBY rationalized. Yes, Professor Goodwitch was a great role model, but RWBY somehow always wound up on her bad side, and frankly, that riding crop freaked her out. The young man leaned back into his chair. But it really has nothing to do with the situation, lady. I am trying to get it back into that topic, not go deeper into why I can't enter your school. The two executive members of the academy stared at each other. Ozpin seemed to deviate from the woman's hidden suggestion to not press further into the issue. Can't, you say? The applicant sent another bout of silence. Pray tell, can you not come to my academy normally? The way he phrased it does raise a few questions, Blake said thoughtfully. The young man raised an eyebrow. I thought you want experienced students for that? Are you not? Ozpin fired back. You carry yourself as a capable fighter. If you can call surviving in the red light district experience, sure, yeah, sure, let's go with that. His snappy and disheartened answer irritated the woman, while it was normal. The way the boy talked irked her for some reason. The boy waved his hand as a way to dismiss or undermine whatever skill he has. I have experience, but not against Grim. I only know how to fight people. It's not even a proper or clean way. My methods are dirty with no style to them. I use anything and everything I can to win in a fight. I don't even have a proper weapon. Just my fists and some fancy pair of gauntlets that don't do anything. Okay. Now I really want to know what he looks like, Yang said under her breath. A guy that used gauntlets in a fight, wasn't afraid to get dirty, and didn't really have a style. That was pretty much her, Tay-T, except she didn't need style. She was style. Ospin was interested at that. A weapon you own, but don't know how to use, peculiar. I am not here to learn, sir, the young man reiterated. I am here for a job. Why is it important for you to get this job? Ospin wondered. I am broke for one, that's a good reason, Blake noted, and he's not resorting to crime, which is very tempting for a lot of people who can fight and have weapons. Look at Torchwick, for example. Oh, please, he's in jail. Ruby waved the girl off with a snort. The good guys always win and the bad guys always lose. Life isn't that simple, Ruby. Yeah, well, we're trying to make it that way, right? Yeah, you tell her, Rubes. Yang cheered with a smile. She ruffled her sister's hair and laughed at the pout sent her way. The blonde answered snappily, by the way, that's another reason why I can't come into your precious academy. Ospin diligently listened, whereas the woman, Glinda, forced herself to stay calm. Tuition is a bit too much. Several digits more than what I get bi-weekly or annually. Other than that, I want to get this job because it pays far better than any janitor job in any place in Vale. And what will you do with that money? The young man turned away, and faced the cityscape of Vale outside the window of the headmaster's office. Survive. Being an orphan for your whole life will teach you that. You don't have to broadcast it, Blake said under her breath. She did admit, though, usually that played a good sympathy card for people who sought out occupations. Neither Ospin nor Glinda showed any signs of reacting to his self-disclosure. Another is that I have to repay my debt to the lady in the orphanage. If it weren't for her guidance, I'd be stuck being a petty thief that stole people's wallets and snacked on leftovers while I slept in cold warehouses. She also helped me write that piece of paper in front of you. I can barely read, sir. He's illiterate, too? Blake frowned. What's that mean? Ruby asked, genuinely confused by the term. He can't read or write, Blake said to the younger girl. What? But, what about public schools? Like Signal? Public schooling isn't cheap, Ruby, Weiss chided the girl. It costs lean for parents to send their children to school. Not to mention most Faunus, if he is one, have similar difficulties because of intolerance outside of Vale, Blake added. Orphan and possible Faunus, yeah, I don't see him going to public school for long, Yang nodded. You're talking pretty decently for one who can barely read, Ospin noted. Shall I chalk it up to your experience in the streets that made you knowledgeable? A nod. Well, that's most interesting. Why have you not had the chance to learn? Well, again, either are public schools, you realize, Ospin pointed out. You could continue your education there. It's free after all. How have you not done that? The orphanage is in shambles, headmaster, the young man explained. The monthly bills to keep water pumping in there as well as the dust needed for heating and air are some of the utility problems we have. Space is another. There are so many in the orphanage now that there are 3 to a bed and 5 on the floor in a 4-person bedroom. A fist hit the table. The landlady needs that money to expand and get space. And with that many mouths, food is another problem. I've been working 3 jobs to keep it up and running. A few of the older ones are doing the same. I then gave it up to get into this one because it paid far better than the others combined. We owe our lives to that woman in the orphanage she allowed us to live in, so from the moment we could talk and do small work, we did everything we could to make that orphanage better. We didn't have time to learn because we chose to help her. Well, at least he has a noble reason behind it, Weiss mumbled. She knew she wasn't ready for a high position because that sob story was pretty darn good. She would have hired him on the spot. Seriously, picture, would like one, Yang mumbled with a small frown. You're serious about repaying debts, it seems, Ospin mused. Whatever gave you that idea? The applicant asked sarcastically. Snarky, I like it, Yang grinned. I will allow an honest man an honest job, Ospin remarked. And you have been awfully honest with me. The man stayed silent for a few moments after. I shall hire you, Naruto Uzumaki. I feel like I should know that name. Blake frowned as she tapped her finger on her book. It was titled Duality, about a man who had 2 spirits living inside of him, one of a raging beast and the other of a warrior of justice fighting to defend his home. His name sounds like a fruit, Yang mumbled, one of those, whatchacall'em, mini oranges. Oh yeah, Dad used to get those all the time, Ruby nodded. The young man's eyes brightened. However, a condition if you will, the young man dulled instantly. You will continue your basic studies here in Beacon. I will not force you to take any classes, but there is the library you can go to in order to advance yourself, no matter how small the triumph. You're even free to enter the gymnasium if you are inclined to keep yourself fit. Please, please, please let us see a picture of him, Yang pleaded with her hands pressed together. You're never usually this obsessed with seeing someone, RWBY said. Yang looked at her sheepishly. My imagination is going wild, I just want a clear picture. Naruto narrowed his eyes, suspicious of the condition. Really? I only want to help you, Ospin replied sincerely, and if giving you an education is the only way I can, then I will give it to you. So, will you take the job, Naruto? Naruto considered it. While he needed the job, he didn't need to learn, he was already far behind everyone else. He couldn't catch up no matter how he tried. Saddening, yes, but it was a truth he admitted to himself by making his sole purpose in life to help the lady and her orphanage. But to get this job, he had to learn at his own pace. It didn't need to be overly difficult in concept at all or even too advanced for his literacy level. What to do? He hummed as he wondered whether or not the deal was worth it. I'll do it. Ospin smiled as he handed a tablet and a set of keys. Then you will need these. A scroll here is like an electronic key and identification here for this academy. The actual keys there are for your room and for the various custodian closets found in the several buildings on campus. Refer to map on your scroll for navigation. What about my uniform? Naruto asked. Don't I need one to separate me from the students? It would be quite confusing for others to think of me as one of them. Already supplied in your room. Seems like you expected me, Naruto observed. I have no idea what you mean. He's sneaky like that, RWBY said with a nod. She liked her headmaster. He was pretty sly for an older guy. Is that it? Indeed, congratulations on getting the job. Young man, Ospin said, may your time here with us be of benefit to you. You can use the rest of your time to familiarize yourself with the place if you so choose. He outstretched his right hand. Naruto took it, and firmly grasped the headmaster's hand. Soon, the young man left the room with a skip in his steps. The young monk retreating back showed the heavily used orange crop jacket and black t-shirt. His black pants were somehow still in good shape, but they've seen quite a bit of action. The extra pockets on the thighs were almost torn apart, but still capable of carrying something. The elders could see the content Naruto had through his body language, and it brightened the headmaster's day a little. Glinda on the other hand was concerned. She was the first to speak her mind. Was it wise of you to do this? Ospin lowered his head. He took the scroll on the table, and replayed the scene he showed to Naruto. I pray it is. Naruto's existence is a problem. His guardian already explained that clearly to us. Oh, an unwanted accident. That's awkward. I highly doubt that's what he meant. Yang. He paused the video right when Naruto brandished his so-called useless weapon. A pair of vibrant red gauntlets that shamed the brightest of reds with its color and form that fit perfectly on Naruto's hands and forearms. Intricate designs of flame wrapped around the wrist and forearm, where a piece of it was structurally different compared to the rest of the armament. Right at the elbow looked to be a set of thrusters. On the back of each hand was a crystal dome that bore unreadable text on its surface. He is able to wield the Cielo Fiamma, but cannot activate its famous combat ability. He has not unlocked his aura yet, Glinda guessed. It seems to be since aura consumption is the only way to summon the flames of Cielo Fiamma, Ospin answered. The manifestation of his soul is his weapon. It is the flame itself. Lupa has explained this already. Fiamma Primo's weapons only worked because it was linked to his aura. Fiamma Iridescent, Pulir Tutto, Ospin recited, iridescent flame, cleanse all. Glinda was confused about the random phrase, the activation code of Cielo Fiamma. He has half of the weapon's potential awakened. All he needs is his aura to release its full power. If what she said is true, and that Naruto is a direct descendant of the first leader of the White Fang, then his aura would be uncannily similar. He's a what? Blake asked, her eyes wide and her mind racing. So he is a Faunus, Weiss mumbled. She looked at Blake. Are you all right? I think the cat's tongue was got by someone else, Yang joked with a small smile. Boo. RWBY gave her sister a thumbs down. Oh, what do you know, you're 15 and a half. Famous huntsman families are known to have a specific aura. Naruto would be no different. With the way the White Fang previously handled succession, Naruto would be the one currently at the helm. In the event that the current White Fang finds out there is one true heir to the seat of leadership in their organization, they will stop at nothing to kill him at his weakest. They will stop at nothing to prevent a peaceful coexistence. They will stop at nothing to extinguish the flames that united a people. We're watching more of this. Blake's voice was firm and held no opening for argument. There was a fire in her eyes and she set her book on the table beside her. The sight of Blake setting a book down in order to watch a show, or what was perceived to be a show when in actuality it was a glimpse into another dimension, made Weiss agree with her, if not to only satisfy her curiosity as to who this Naruto was and how he was related to the founder of the White Fang. Binge about some guy who's our age doing physical labor while we study. Sounds good to me, Yang said with a grin. She hopped to her feet and grabbed her scroll. I'll get some snacks. I'll go too. Ruby offered as she got to her feet. You never get enough cookies. Or, here's a thought. You eat too much. Blasphemy. I drink milk. That's not an argument, Ruby. The sisters continued to argue as they walked away, and Weiss looked at Blake curiously. So, about this Fiamma, Weiss began. His name isn't known here. Most of the history of the group was lost, Blake said. She frowned and furrowed her brows. It can't just be a coincidence. What? Nothing. Just thinking aloud. Blake mumbled. She frowned as a new thought came to her mind. Do you think they'll grab some tuna salad? Blake, have you ever seen any of us go for the tuna salad? Weiss asked. We should go with them. Okay. Cookies for Ruby, tuna for Blake. I've got my treats all set up orderly. Yang trailed off, chancing a look at the mountain of sweets around her sister. She looked at Weiss and shook her head. And the princess has her celery sticks. You have your favorite treats and I have mine, Weiss huffed. Lame. Yang sang out with a smirk. She looked at Blake. Started up, Blakey. Don't call me Blakey. Blake muttered around a bite of the tuna before she turned the screen on. It had been a week after the interview, and over the duration of it, Naruto explored the campus as if it were a maze, certainly should be, since the north, south, east, and west wings of the campus are mini labyrinths of classrooms, stairwells, amphitheaters, and arenas. Makes sense to have many of the last items since this place is a school for monster slaying and crime fighting. His favorite spot was any rooftop that he could get onto to watch the city of Vale. Being placed on top of a rather tall cliffside, Beacon Academy easily stood above the nearby city. The added height of the various buildings added to the angle he could see the city in. Ah, so a sightseer. Interesting. Yang rubbed her chin and then frowned. The video had been replaced with a still of a silhouette atop a non-specific building of Beacon. Why is this more like a novel? What happened to the show-like quality? Well, to answer your question, there's quite a bit of background information you can only glean through narration. The seer's voice chimed from a small icon that appeared on the screen. As to your next question, you haven't gotten a good look at the protagonist because, well, you haven't met him yet. Rest assured, in times of action or necessity, the show will be restored. Oh, Creeper's got an art flair to him, Yang purred. The icon seemed to droop in despair. Not a creeper. Currently he saw the view of the city inside a viewing platform underneath the airship he was on. The aerial view captured Vale's placid appearance. The lack of anything akin to a skyscraper kept the city from looking chaotic in a sense. True, there were many spires that were a part of a rooftop. The architecture had gone way back in the times of the Warring Kingdoms. Not that Naruto truly knew of the history of Remnant or Vale itself. All he thought was how pretty it was to see the city in this kind of view. That, and he thought how awesome it would be to fly on his own will. How he'd like to feel the air caressing his face as he took in the sights from the new vantage point up above, to be one with the sky. But isn't there bulkheads and stuff for that? Ruby asked. It's just not the same, Ruby, like when we were launched off of Beacon's cliff. Yang trailed off with a grin. Oh, how he yearned the freedom to accomplish that childish ambition. His face crept up into a smile as his innocent thought roamed his mind. Onward, his mind recollected a saying Granny Lupa told him as a child. Right when you feel like you will die is when you will be at your strongest. Your flame will burn at its brightest before it extinguishes. He stared at his right hand, where a silver ring-like accessory with the image of a flame encompassed a blue crystal. An X was over the crystal, and bore the word familia or family on it on one of the lines. The ring was extended from the base of the middle finger to the first joint. At the tapered end of the ring, a chain connected a smaller ring fashioned onto his pinky. And he got that bling to keep his pimp hands strong. Yang. Ruby chided her sister while Blake smirked and Weiss rolled her eyes. This was its unawakened form. He had to recite the chant Granny told him to activate it into its gauntlet form. That much he got, but anything further than that, he could not get it to work. Granny Lupa said this thing would spout a bunch of fire once its full potential is needed. When will I need to release its flames? He wondered lowly. At the moment, they were just fancy boxing gloves to him. Blargee. A voice grunted beside him. Naruto stared at the source of the voice, a young man with unkempt, straight blonde hair. Oh come on. Yang protested with a frown. Puke boy meets him before we do, so not fair. His attire could be described as a squire, who lacked the proper armor coverage on his sides, legs, arms, and head. The white breastplate would be easily torn to shreds by a grim that got a good hit in. In fact, the young man didn't fit the bill as a huntsman in Naruto's eyes. huntsmen and huntresses were respectable, noble, and carried a powerful air around them. This guy just felt disappointing. The little girl in the red cloak, who's being smothered by a older blonde, had a more powerful quality in her than this wimpy guy next to him. Wah, that's us. Rubes, do something dorky to get him to go meet us. WFHSHH? Ruby asked around a mouth stuffed with treats. Yang sighed, never mind, but if the headmaster allowed it, he should question it. In fact, he should question the guy's status. Yo, you alright? The guy next to him reeled in his discomfort to dissuade Naruto from helping. I am fine, the guy weakly answered. Motion sickness. A nod. Figures. Naruto shuffled around his back pocket and handed the guy a barf bag. I don't need you making more work for me before the school year has started. The motion-sick young man gladly took the bag and unloaded his breakfast inside it. It kept going for a little more than half a minute before the guy finished. Naruto quickly grabbed the bag, sealed it, and chucked it into the trash. Next he handed the newly relieved student a mint-flavored gum. Thanks, no prob. You say work, the guy restated. You're not a student? What was your first clue? Weiss asked around a scoff. Come on, be nice. Weiss. Ruby pouted at the girl, her milk mustache framing her downward curved mouth. John's our friend. Weiss rolled her eyes. Your friend? He's my acquaintance and annoyance. Well, if you threw him a bone, Yang suggested. Not in a million years. Wow, not even a name first? Classy, Naruto sassed. The other blonde cringed at his words. The guy laughed it off unconvincingly. Sorry, my name's John Ark. Yours? He put out a hand to shake. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto replied just as he shook John's hand. The two let go, and Naruto replied to John's earlier question, and yes, I am not a student. Some people aren't that lucky to have the money to pay all 4 years of it, and some people aren't that skilled to even get in here. Personally, I am here as a janitor because I need the money. I don't have the skills to get in this place as a student. Oh, John was a bit stunned by the amount of information just shot back at him. That's stupid, I know, Naruto interrupted. I mean, I am going to one of the fanciest schools for combat, and I am going there as a janitor. Little people have the biggest impact, Ruby protested. You know Dad only says that because you're short, right? Yang asked. I am not short. I drink milk, Ruby huffed. Besides, Weiss is shorter than me and oops, sorry, Weiss. Whatever, Weiss huffed. She didn't care that Ruby was taller than her by a hair despite being younger, really. If you say it like that, it does sound strange, John remarked. I say you should be proud to step foot on that academy. Naruto scoffed. Big talk coming from a guy who can't hold his breakfast before even stepping on Beacon's walkway. John recoiled at the blunt blow to his ego. The sudden reaction got Naruto to snicker a little. Hey, at least no one saw it, right? No one can call you Vomit Boy. I sure hope not. Oh, we will forever, Yang sang with a grin on her face. Naruto placed a reassuring hand on John's hunched shoulders. You'll be fine, he said. If you got into Beacon, then that means you've got to be awesome at fighting. I am. John stuttered. And nothing to worry about over here. My sword and shield skills will make me famous one day. Just you wait and see. Naruto sighed lowly. John couldn't be any more of a liar than he is right now. At least he's improved, Ruby suggested when she noticed Weiss' irritation spread on her face. John's poker face needed work. He had so many tells just from that one reply alone. Stiffening body, stuttering, frenzied eye movement, cracked voice, etc. Not that he'd tell him. John himself would eventually pay for his lie. Yeah, Naruto waved it off. Go practice your lady killer suave on some of the girls here. It would be a great time waster for you. Oh, good, so I can blame him for this intrusion this time around, Weiss muttered. John looked at the various femme fatales aboard the observation deck, and gulped. Their weapons looked really deadly. Nah, I can do that at a later time. How are their weapons scarier than mine? Weiss asked, eyes narrowed. Yours looks like a silver wand with a cup on the end. Weiss glared at Blake's dry comment while Yang laughed. Naruto crossed his arms and raised an eyebrow. How could he not want to ask out any of the girls here? They were gorgeous. They were simply amazing. It's as if they were those Amazons Granny Lupa told him of as a toddler. This guy, he cut himself off. Suit yourself. With the way you're starting off, your love life is going to be frustrating to look at. Nothing. Ooh, so he's a watcher and a teaser? Yang asked, more interested than before. Their airship had finally landed and soon, Naruto was out of there. He headed for the main walkway that led to the academy's plaza. While not exactly in a hurry, he was trying to get away from the eventual mob of freshmen. Unfortunately, he miscalculated how eager the new students were, and was hounded from all directions as one by one. Students rushed deeper into the campus. A body crashed directly behind him. It was quite soft. His cheeks flared red when he realized what it was. He turned around and faced himself with that blonde in the observation deck. She was quite a looker. She was a bit shorter than him, who was an even 6 feet tall. She wears a tan vest with gold piping over a yellow low-cut crop top with a black crest that resembles a burning heart. Her upper body is quite filled out, and Naruto could not help but take a rather quick glance at the girl's cleavage. White knight he may have been taught as a kid, but he's still a hormonal teen. Score. Yang grinned and pumped her fist. Mama's still got the moves. Naruto recollected himself, and mused if the burning heart was her emblem. So far he saw an image that represented a different person. Why were there individual emblems? Some sort of extra identification perhaps? Naruto had no idea except for the nice addition it adds to clothing or weapons. The vest has puffy cap sleeves with black cuffs on the sides of the cuffs. There are 2 small golden buttons. She wears a brown belt with a buckle, a pouch, and a small banner-like object. The same burning heart crest appears on this banner, except golden in color. She wears black shorts under her belt, which resembles a pleated skirt in the back. Her midriff is quite distracting as it shows her generous hips. Over the short shorts but under the belt is a white asymmetrical back skirt. On her neck was an orange infinity scarf. Naruto approved of the color. Orange is an awesome color. So he likes orange, huh? Yang mused, stroking her chin thoughtfully. She wears brown knee-high platform boots that appear to be made of leather, with orange socks of different lengths. Her left leg also has a gray bandana-like object wrapped around the top of her boot. She wears fingerless black gloves underneath her weapons, which resemble 2 yellow mechanized gauntlets with a black design. By the way, this happened within the span of 3 seconds. The girl had yet to apologize, not that Naruto would notice it since he was admiring her form in a normal, non-perverted way.
Oh, come on, don't be boring. Yang huffed. She didn't mind being eye candy a little, as long as she got some in return, and as long as the eye candy stare up close didn't last longer than 5 seconds.
My bad, she apologized informally. I followed the crowd to get away from my little sis for a bit, didn't think I'd run directly into someone. Her lilac eyes shone. Naruto shivered a little. It almost felt nostalgic to see that eye color.
It's no problem, he said with a flashy smile. He quickly turned around and headed off in another direction entirely. You should hurry to the amphitheater, the assembly will start shortly. Yang stood there dumbfounded. Her mind was more focused on the guy, who was in her honest opinion as the perfect catch ever.
Yes. Give me that mental image. Yang cheered as the screen revealed Naruto to them. Her grin dwindled away into mild shock and a blush blossomed across her face. Blake's eyes went wide. Weiss took a deep breath through her nose. She repeated a firm mantra in her mind that she was a schnee and she would not blush at the pretty boy. Ruby stuffed another cookie in her mouth and shrugged. He looks sort of like Sun, she noted as the narrator began to put words to the image.
Blonde locks of untamed madness that lead to a chiseled face, a nice eyes of baby blue eyes, and cool and cute marks on his cheeks, that in a sculpted torso underneath that loose, black tank top. Yang may have not seen much, she was pretty sure that the guy's pecs could sharpen the dullest knife, finally.
That is a mighty and firm one, she purred sweetly while staring at Naruto's retreating butt. 360 visual, please, Yang implored, recovered from the surprise of the protagonist's appearance. Given what she requested, her grin plastered itself across her face. A purr escaped her throat. Oh yeah, he might look like Sun, but Dad asked Do.
He's decent, Weiss muttered. Damn, Blake didn't look at all apologetic when her team sent her bewildered looks. She shrugged. I call it like I see it, and he's worthy of a damn.
Hell yeah he is. Yang hooted in agreement. Weiss scowled at them. Mature, the both of you. Don't be a prude, Weiss, Yang chided, it makes you seem ugly. I'll see you soon, Lady Killer. Let it be known that Yang Xiaolong never took a passing pretty face too seriously, never. Ain't that the truth? Yang nodded in agreement. Sure, I flirt casually and admire free shows when given to them, but most pretty faces don't have that one thing that makes them stick out for me. And this one does? Blake asked. He's got more than one thing. That's all I'll say for now based on looks alone, Yang said with a shrug. Naruto somehow did the opposite. No doubt he doesn't even know what the girl thought of him. Meh. Not like it will bite him in the ass sooner or later. Yeah, I am sure. Weiss scoffed. Seconds later, Naruto realized he walked in a circle and managed to get near the landing area of the airship he rode on. How did I get here? What are you doing? Do you have any idea of the damage you could have caused? Gee, I wonder just who that is? Yang asked, grinning at her sister and her sister's partner. Shut up, Yang. Oh, great, The two replied simultaneously, both sour in their responses. Well, that did not sound good. Naruto looked for the irritated girl, and found himself staring at a fallen girl, the one in the red cloak from earlier, and another girl in white. The girl in white wears a extremely pale blue bolero jacket over a similarly colored thigh-length dress that ends in a combat skirt with a piece of black lace making up the neckline of the dress. The inside of the bolero is red and the sleeves turn blue as they get closer to her wrists. The back of the bolero displays an emblem, which bears a resemblance to a snowflake. Her hair is in an asymmetrical ponytail off to the right and had a little tiara over the ponytail. Her other accessories are a pair of rectangular earrings and a silver necklace. On her left was a rapier tied to her waist. The other girl has her gigantic, hooded, red cloak.
Primarily in a black attire, the girl also wears a black blouse with a corset on her waist and tightened by red laces on the corset. On her waist is a gray belt that had the image of a silver rose to her right, and an ammo pouch even further to the right. She wears a black combat skirt trimmed with a bright red color. Her black stockings has a shade of skin color on it since it was probably the only layer she has on her legs aside from the obvious one between them, panties.
Not always true. Yang's chime made Ruby choke on the cookie she popped in her mouth. The hooded huntress grabbed her glass of milk and quickly drank, forcing the sweet in her mouth to soften and slide down her throat. Yang! She shrieked once the threat of death was gone, glaring silver daggers at her laughing sister. Her black combat boots has a red trim up top, red laces and soles to finish off the color scheme.
Naruto realized something. Was there a color scheme going on around here? Almost every single person he had seen so far stayed true to mostly one color and a few others to keep it different. Just what has the world come to where a person's appearance is defined by the color scheme one wears?
Holy crap, Blake mumbled as she looked at her teammates. Yang and Weiss were too amused by Ruby's attempts to chide her sister, and then fought over her appearance. Realize something, did you? The seer asked through her scroll, which was set beside her. Blake glanced down at the iconic eye on her scroll. Are you trying to tell us something? Perhaps, shish, this is where it gets interesting. Aside from the mental dilemma, the girl in white snatched a briefcase handed over by the one in red, and inspected its contents. This is dust, mined and purified from the Schnee quarry. The girl in red failed to say anything in time. What are you, brain dead? The girl in white grabbed a vial of red dust, and slammed the case shut. Particles of blue and red stirred in the air as the rude teen shook her vial. Dust, fire, water, lightning, energy. Are you even listening to me? Not really. Naruto could clearly see that the younger girl had more important things occupying her time. Great, another person about to make my job harder than what it's supposed to be. Naruto dashed in, and turned the girl in red the opposite way just in time to sneeze away from the dust. Made it, he thought happily. Hey, princess, what gives? You can't just start yelling at people without asking for their side of the story. Best janitor ever, Ruby decided then and there. Weiss rolled her eyes and scowled at the girl. Well, I wasn't exactly having the best morning, so sorry I was so rude.
And who are you to ask so rudely? Naruto Uzumaki, a janitor.
Personally, I don't want to start off my first day on the job cleaning up your mess. And I highly doubt you want to start off your year vandalizing school property with an explosive material. If you don't seal that vial of dust right now, it's likely that one of us will explode literally or whatever that other word is. Naruto replied angrily. The girl stared all around her, and saw the floating particles around them. Embarrassed by her actions, she quickly collected her belongings, and went deeper into campus. Faye. Not even an apology for being rude. Hey, Red. He tapped the remaining girl's shoulder. You good? Huh? Yeah. The girl turned around. Thanks, my name is Ruby Rose, she greeted. Naruto introduced himself. Now I don't want to be rude, but you gotta go to the amphitheater down the walkway past the doors in front of you. The assembly is about to start, and he checked the time on the nearby clock post. Crap, I am late. Naruto dashed off in another direction completely opposite of the campus entrance, and left a confused Ruby by herself. Ooh, ditched my lil sis. Points deducted. Yang shook her head in disapproval. She snagged a treat while Ruby pouted at being left behind. He did have to get to work, Blake said in Naruto's defense. It's the first day and we saw how hard it was to convince Ozpin to even give him this job. Right. Yang tapped her chin and then nodded. Still, I said points deducted. I didn't mean he was off the table. She sent a sly look over to the lone faunus of the team. Or are you hoping for that outcome? What's it to you? Blake shot back, a small smirk on her face. Yang arched a brow and grinned. So Kitty wants to play, huh? Fine with me. The sun had set, and Naruto diligently finished his job sweeping the cafeteria. The large room took him a good 3 hours to sweep. Another hour to wipe off tables, 2 to pick up trash and clean leftover kitchenwares. Not to say that he was the only janitor around, but it seemed like he did more work. The others were simply cleaning their designated area while Naruto himself wandered to another spot to clean.
To say it was productive was a sore understatement. He finished the connecting hallways, cleaned restrooms, locker rooms, the plaza, and some few more locations that he could not care to mention because he was tired. He left the polishing to the automatons that roam at night to pick off any unseen specks of trash. He placed his sweeper, bucket, and various cleaning tools off in one of the many janitor closets on campus.
He walked on, hoping to reach his room without his legs buckling from the day of work.
He went from the west wing to the east, a 15-minute walk from the previous building to his room in the east wing. He entered the rather large building and walked up one of the many staircases to reach his room. A skylight shone one of the moons down on his body. The night sky looked so peaceful again. He stopped to bask in moon's rays. A smile lit his face. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad to try one more time.
Try what? RWBY asked. I suppose we'll find out soon enough, Weiss said as she popped another celery stick into her mouth. He was on the 3rd floor. There's a nearby door to access the balcony, though he needed to be stealthy since the freshmen were sleeping nearby behind the glass before the balcony he planned to use.
Blake Belladonna's golden eyes snapped open when she heard a nearby door squeak. Silently, she rose up to find out the source of the noise. She used her faunus ears to listen closely. Footsteps on the balcony. Blake tiptoed her way to the balcony to find out who disrupted her sleep.
Ooh, guess curiosity is getting to the cat. Yang grinned at Blake, whose glance in return showed that she wasn't amused by the analogy.
When she got there, she saw a blonde sit on the stone rail. The blonde said something that she recognized like any veteran White Fang member did.
Fiamma iridescent, pulir tutto. The blonde's hands lit up like fire. The intense light forced her to close her eyes to not damage them. Moments later, the flames died out to show a red gauntlet that she was very familiar with since she idolized the first leader of the White Fang. Cielo Fiamma, Blake muttered in surprise. Why does it still exist? A good question. Blake rubbed her chin in thought. She narrowed her eyes. What does that mean? Her thoughts were disrupted by Yang's annoyed groan. Come on, another intermission. The blonde frowned. What's up with that creeper? Consider it payback for calling me a creeper, the seer drawled as his icon appeared on the whole screen. In all seriousness, I have a question. Would you like to include some friends on this little find or prefer to keep it to yourselves?
We should share it, duh. Yang said dryly. I don't know, Blake said. She ignored the frown sent her way and addressed the screen. The more people watch this, the more real we may feel about it. It is only a window, and wouldn't you prefer to have less people concerned over your existence? Ruby's eyes swirled and Yang scratched her head from the comments Blake made while Weiss furrowed her brow in contemplation. The heiress' eyes widened at the implications Blake's words concealed. Couldn't this become a huge problem or be blown out of proportion? Ah, now that is a question. However, I am an alternate dimensional being, not to mention a seer, as my title suggests. You should know that ID already tallied the risks, but whether or not it is or could be a problem is up for you to decide. The seer mused. His emblem blinked off of the screen and 2 squares appeared.
One had the number 4 plastered on it and the other had a 4 with a plus. Blake looked at RWBY. Well, you're our team leader, she said. You should decide. Come on, this'll be a load of fun with more people, RWBY, Yang suggested, like a party. No. We should keep this between us. What if we see something like a death? Weiss pointed out, if we learned, for example, John's ineptitude does get him killed and he's here to see it, that will affect him on a deep level. Or inspire him to be better. Yang countered. Excuse me. Blake cut in, annoyed. She glared at the 2 seated on either side of RWBY and then looked back at her. RWBY, what do you think? I guess we should. RWBY hesitated as the eyes of her sister and friends fell on her. I mean, obviously, we should wait, just a bit, RWBY finally decided. Make sure things play out a little bit differently. Yang frowned while Weiss nodded. Glad you decided, and now we can continue, Blake said as she started the next part by selecting the lone 4 option. Ospin had replayed a recording of last night. He saw Naruto attempting to release the flames out of Cielo Fiamma by brute force, which amounted to nothing but failure. Naruto needed his aura, but one cannot unlock it without large amounts of distress or someone unlocking it for him. As much as he wanted to help, he could not interfere. If he did, it would send the message that Ospin had been spying on his new employee. That and Lupa did say that she taught Naruto to be wary of those who know the identity of Cielo Fiamma. The headmaster sighed. It was slightly infuriating to keep secrets this important to the young man. The boy had a right to know his own heritage, his own family, but that can't be done. Not until Naruto was strong enough. Ospin was only a headmaster, nothing more. The more he interfered, the faster the secret unfolds. Ospin leaned back on his chair and stared to the ceiling. Minato, guide your son to the right path. Well, that's only making the secret more tantalizing, Yang mumbled, still a little bummed they couldn't share this with others. Blake Belladonna could not get the image of what happened last night out of her head. A young man, a human, could wield Cielo Fiamma. Impossible. It broke all logic. Cielo Fiamma was linked to Fiamma Primo's aura. Therefore only people of his blood can wield it. Does that mean that boy is related to Primo? Plausible, but she had never heard of a half-faunus that had no visible characteristic of an animal. From her angle, she could not see anything else other than the untamed hair he had. Could it be his hair? It almost looks like a lion's. Blake wondered. Male, lion faunus, could have pronounced canines, retractable claws, or a mane. She scratched the last one out. Compared to other lion faunus, the young man she saw last night had shorter hair than most. Barbershops exist, the Schnee heiress idly commented. Shut up, Weiss, Blake said with a small frown while she tried to figure out what type of faunus this guy was. The same can be said of Primo, she thought begrudgingly. Despite being in love with books, Blake did not fancy mysteries. So far, that blonde enigma last night has been a consistent mystery full of plausible truth or contradictions. It frustrated her. She walked to the initiation location, a cliffside that faced a wide forest, while still recollecting facts. Minato Fiamma, or Fiamma Seconda, was last to have wielded Cielo Fiamma, but in the years before his assassination and subsequent reformation of the White Fang's methodology, Fiamma Seconda admitted to losing the weapon after being knocked out by alcohol. Yeah, no, Yang snorted, that's a lie, a crappy one, too. How do you? Weiss was cut off by Yang's smirk. The gauntlets only come off when we say they come off. Yang shrugged. Someone would have to cut my arms off to get Ember Cecilia. Fair point. Blake did not like the implication. Minato Fiamma was known in the White Fang for his inability to hold his drink. He would be a chaotic drunkard. However, in the presence of a woman, he was a Casanova. Blake really hated the implications her mind made on the spot. Had Fiamma Seconda conceived an heir with an unknown woman during the time he lost Cielo Fiamma? It made sense at least. Only A Fiamma could activate Cielo Fiamma, and the new unknown wielder of Cielo Fiamma could activate it. However, its flames were a different story. Blake knew that young Mont's aura had to be locked since the flames were not spewing out the arm thrusters on his forearm or even coated his palms. Moreover, she could tell his aura was compatible since it felt warm even in its restrained state. Who are you? She silently asked nobody in particular. For years, you have trained to become warriors. Ospin's voice snapped Blake out of her thoughts. Today, your abilities will be evaluated in Emerald Forest. Ah yeah, get to see us be awesome all over again, Yang said as she popped a chip into her mouth. Yes, nearly dying. How awesome, Weiss deadpanned. Ah, come on, Weiss, don't be so glum. RWBY beamed at her partner. We took out a giant Nevermore. I should NT focus on that guy. I came here to Beacon to start fresh. I should NT remind myself of the White Fang. I should NT remind myself of the lost Fiamma family. I should NT. She stopped herself. Cielo Fiamma was Fiamma Primo's, her idol's weapon. Her family name of Belladonna only survived up to this point because Fiamma Primo saved her grandfather and grandmother from meaningless execution. To forget that was to trample upon her family's word. It was her duty to seek out this young man and get some answers. First and foremost, are you single? That is not what my other meant, Yang, Blake snapped. No, but it'd make the show way more interesting, Yang said cheekily. If that blonde is the Fiamma Terzo, then it would be her duty both as a Belladonna and as a former member of the White Fang to protect him, to the very last breath. To protect every generation of Fiamma was their family's purpose besides aiding him or her in coexistence with humans. These teammates will be with you for the rest of your time here at Beacon, so it is in your best interest to be paired with someone with whom you can work well. The headmaster gave a quick pause. That being said, the first person you make eye contact with upon touching the ground will be your partner for the next 4 years. That seems highly illogical to do, but if you want to drill in the concept of teamwork, be my guest, headmaster. Blake readied herself. First she needed to get past this initiation before she could search for that young man. Drat, foiled by the dastardly education system again. Yang snapped her fingers and scowled. Blake rolled her eyes at the joke while RWBY snickered and Weiss smirked. Naruto groggily woke up. His half-asleep face stared at the ceiling. Another failed attempt. What am I missing? He wondered to himself. He raised his right hand and inspected the ring once more. Cielo Fiamma, why won't you release your fire? Am I the wrong guy? As if offended by the question, the rings bound to his fingers tighter. Naruto winced at the action. "I'll take that as a no then," he muttered. "What am I missing?" He asked again in hopes of getting a sign. He waited patiently, seconds went to minutes. Nothing happened. Just when he was about to give up, his mind ached, he closed his eyes. A black void, however, in the middle of it all, a tiny, flickering flame. Naruto kind of understood it, though he couldn't put it into words. He massaged his head. "I am the one that has to supply the flame." Huh? No confirmation was given. "This sucks. How am I going to get you to work?" An alarm beeped. Naruto's eyes widened. Wait a sec. Was that all a dream? What the heck kind of dream makes you dream about being awake? So, he was asleep dreaming about waking up before he woke up and realized he was dreaming about being awake? Ruby's eyes crossed after she summarized the scene. She closed her eyes and rubbed her head. "Ow, my brain hurts." "Don't try to think about it, then," Weiss said, "but it could be crucial to the plot." "When has a dream ever been crucial to a plot?" Weiss scoffed. Weiss' scroll hummed alive with the Sears symbol. "Remind me to never introduce you to Percy Jackson." "Who?" Weiss asked. "No one important, never mind." The Sears symbol dimmed. Naruto's eyes locked in on the time shown in the clock. 9 a.m. He bolted out of bed quick. Not again. He rushed himself into his personal bathroom and took a 3-minute shower, a quick brush of his hair, some deodorant and lotion, and he was ready to put on his dark blue jumpsuit uniform of a custodian of Beacon. A set of rusty brown eyes narrowed at a rushing blonde headed for his position. "You're late again," Uzumaki, a tanned man with slicked back white hair said. Naruto skidded to a halt, and panted for a few moments. The older man crossed his arms. "I am beginning to doubt that you actually want this job. You're more akin to a turtle than what your little tattoos on your cheeks say otherwise. I don't see why I can't get you kicked out of this job for your sloppy attendance so far." Murmurs were being passed off from the other custodians in the room. It slightly unnerved Naruto. Naruto repeatedly bowed since he was afraid to lose his job just after he got it. "I am really sorry, boss, I was just..." "I've no need for excuses," the man cut off harshly before he turned around. "I want to see you work, not squeak like a mouse." I am more likely to believe he's Blake's brave lion. "Young, shut up," the blunt words got to Naruto, who cleared up his mind. The younger man understood that excuses should not be made. To this man, actions spoke louder than words. He would show it by cleaning far more efficiently than yesterday. "Let's go, newbie. Do you have enough cleaning solution stocked up?" "Yes, sir," Naruto answered confidently. An hour or two later, Naruto finished sweeping the hardwood floor of the ballroom the freshmen slept in last night. He was proud of his work. He made that floor reflect his face on its surface. "Talk about using some elbow grease," Yang said with an approving whistle. She grinned. Then again, with his physique, I am not surprised. He needed to keep this kind of quality cleaning. Granny Lupa's orphanage depended on his help along with the other older orphans who planned to help out as well. Now to dust off the walls and polish those windows. A growl from his stomach protested the idea. "Right after I get some ramen." He exited the room quickly to satisfy his stomach's rumbling. He pushed the door open, and felt it slam against something that grunted in pain. Naruto looked at who might be the unfortunate victim, and was terrified of who it was. His janitorial boss. "Uzumaki, my bad, boss." Naruto apologized quickly. The value of the apology waned when his stomach growled again. The older man walked past him. "If you were hungry, you should have just said so. Follow me. I am taking a lunch break too." The two headed off into the building's cafeteria hall on the first floor. Naruto was stunned by the volume of students in the large room. "Why are there so many people?" Naruto asked. "It's initiation day," the man answered simply before fully explaining the meaning of today. "Second, third, and fourth years are exempted from class so that they can watch the new blood." "They all saw us suffer," Ruby said with watery eyes, "so not fair." Naruto stared at the tan janitor with unfocused eyes. The older janitor massaged his temple. Ospin did say Naruto lacked proper education. The others have a free day so that they can look at the newly forming teams. The gears in Naruto's head finally worked. "Oh, that's cool. Does that mean no, we can't watch them?" Naruto slouched forward. He was disappointed, but it made sense for other staff to be doing their jobs rather than slack off on a day like this. The older janitor could see the disappointment in Naruto's eyes, and aimed to remedy that by saying the condition, "Unless you are on break." Naruto's mood instantly whipped toward the opposite end of the scale. He whooped for joy. He may not be a good fighter, but he acknowledged those stronger than him, like the huntsmen and huntresses stationed around the world. They were accomplished because they were among the best of the best, and fought tooth and nail to get their position, kinda like the storybook heroes Granny Lupa talked about before he went to bed. Aside from repaying her, at some point, he did want to become a huntsman. He wanted to help people just like Granny Lupa did for him and the others who at one point lived or still lives under her care. He reasoned with himself that doing this job would help the young ones. He should aim to kill himself off earlier than it should. At least he has a noble head on his shoulders, Weiss said with a small smile that she shared with her teammates. I wonder how strong he really is, though, RWBY mused before she bit into another cookie. They found a free table, and Naruto quickly sat there to claim it, plus with this seat, he could watch the recording from far away without any loss in definition. He'll get his food, the older janitor announced. What would you like? Miso ramen, sir. The man left Naruto alone to watch the initiation right where the young man sat. The blonde stared at the faraway screen. That girl in red, RWBY, was in a firing squad along with that crabby princess, that golden bombshell, and a mysterious beauty in black. Golden bombshell? Points returned, Yang said with a grin. Deducted, Weiss scowled. She was not a crabby princess. She was just having an off morning. Then again, that is what they say about first impression. Oh, don't be Jelen Weiss. Someday you'll find a lady killer just right for you. They were firing off round after round in an attempt to shoot down a gigantic black raven. A nevermore if Granny Lupa's lessons were correct. The giant bird never faltered, and rammed its right wing on the structure the girls were on. Naruto was alarmed. Would they die falling to their deaths? His fears were proven wrong as each girl easily made it to stable ground up above a similarly made structure. The young man's fingers twitched. His body had the urge to do something about the situation, but what could he do? He sucked compared to the girls he was watching. Plus, Cielo Fiamma did not want to show its true potential. Naruto clutched his chest. Why does it feel like I am missing out on something awesome? He wondered to himself before he shook the thought. I should be thinking of fighting. I wouldn't be much help at all. Just then, a bowl of ramen was placed in front of him. Ah, thanks, boss. The man sat down and ate his plate of curry. You're welcome. The two silently ate their food while spectating the initiation. Naruto spoke up when he saw something strange. Boss. Why did that guy in green not die yet? He asked. I mean, a throw like that to a pillar should kill a person, right? In normal circumstances, yes. With a hit like that, normal people are supposed to die, the man agreed. However, as a huntsman or huntress, they have access to their aura, the manifestation of their souls to act as a barrier to protect them from major damage. So, it's like an active force field? Yup, but rather than defense. It can also be used for offense, the man stated as a matter of fact. Some people who've trained their aura can project it outwards as extra force for their attack. Some even compact their aura into one attack to make their next attack longer, sharper, stronger, and so on. Naruto leaned forward, obviously interested in the topic. The most terrifying example of aura used for offense was one man around 80 years ago, who used his aura to burn an army. My grandfather said that the flames were far more intense than regular ones, despite looking like normal flames. Anyone near it felt the heat melt their armors and weapons. I think I know what he's talking about, Blake said dryly. What? RWBY asked. Give it a second. Whoa, that guy sounds pretty strong. He's also the one who made the White Fang in the first place, the man answered. Yep, thought so, Blake said with a nod. Whoa, RWBY and Yang chorused. That guy was a Faunus? Naruto exclaimed in surprise. That's so cool. The man agreed. That man united the Faunus under the banner of the White Fang, but it was his flames that attracted the Faunus to him. Despite the destructive potential of his aura, it's been said that his was welcoming, warm, and gave off the feeling of family. It felt harmonious, or so my grandfather said. Naruto glanced at his right hand. Naruto calmed himself down. The story felt familiar, but he couldn't place a finger on where he heard it from. But he had a lead now on how to get Cielo Fiamma's flames to come out. Can you tell me how to activate my aura? The man raised an eyebrow. I am sorry, that's impossible for me. I don't even have mine unlocked. You'll need to see a proper huntsman or huntress to unlock it for you. Either that or be under a lot of stress to the point you feel like you're about to die or really are about to die, or so the books say. I am not really sure anymore. You might need to go to the library to confirm the information. Naruto was shocked to hear the words come from someone else. Granny was right. He now had the right idea to release Cielo Fiamma's true potential. Pumped up by the discovery, Naruto quickly ate his food. Eating so fast should make him sick, Weiss said with horrid fascination as the show displayed just how rapidly Naruto ate. I know it's going to make me sick, Yang muttered, points deducted. I could eat faster, RWBY huffed. It's not a challenge, RWBY.
I could still eat faster. Once clean, he stood up, and thanked his superior for the food. He took off, but not without stopping to look at the progress of the initiation. He saw RWBY drag the Nevermore up a cliff before she decapitated the Grimm's head cleanly off its body. Hey, good for you, RWBY. He rushed to the ballroom to finish his job. First clean those windows and walls, then to the library to pick up a book on Aura for Dummies.
That'll be quite challenging for him, if his phonetic skills is as bad as he says it is, Weiss said knowingly. A group stepped into an orphanage. They were wearing the same outfit's uniforms. They each wore a white vest with two buttons holding it together. Underneath was a black top with a hood. On their faces, a metal mask resembling Grimm. White Fang. They were here for one person. That person was on television, and his weapons looked eerily similar to Primo's and Seconda's. They had to confirm their suspicion. The humans they interrogated pointed out that the boy they were looking for had been a part of this orphanage for his whole life. So here they were, busting down the door. The leader of the group parted his subordinates. He was bulkier than them, but overall appearance looked the same. His mask was far more sinister, however. Instead of a half mask, this one was a full one with two eye slits with red streaks to add to the design of the mask. It looked like a golem's face. "Lupa," he shouted, "come out, you traitor." "Oh, well, this ought to be interesting," Blake said dryly. The peaceful atmosphere of the orphanage changed. An elderly woman in a black blouse and long skirt with a white apron over it entered the hallway. She had extensively gray hair that was pulled back into a ponytail of uncontrollable shaggy hair resembling a wolf's. Her sharp burgundy eyes narrowed at the White Fang members. Her face was lightly wrinkled, betraying her true age of 82, that and her posture was perfect. Not a slouch or signs of muscle degradation because of old age, she was fit for an old lady. "I sense a butt whoopin' coming," Yang said with a smirk, granny style. "The deadliest of fighting styles," Ruby whispered with narrowed eyes. "Kane, is that you? Where is Fiamma Terzo?" Kane demanded. "Really? Not even going to properly greet your own flesh and blood grandmother?" Lupa asked with mock hurt. "Where is Fiamma Terzo?" he repeated in a snarl. "The Fiamma line is gone," Lupa answered. "Your group sought its demise. The relatives, both distant and close, were wiped out on that night. You didn't leave any Fiamma alive. You didn't even spare the newborns." "That's monstrous," Weiss gaped, horrified. "Yeah, well, I didn't. I wouldn't." Blake faltered for words. She knew the White Fang had derailed from its purpose, but to have fallen so far off track was shocking. Kane stomped his foot. "I am not here for a lesson on morality. Where is he?" "The Fiamma family is gone. You're catching a phantom," Lupa lied. "Stop toying with me," Kane roared. "What makes you think I am?" Lupa asked sincerely. "We raided the prison for answers," Kane said. "Those gang members agreed on one thing they heard from the blonde boy that beat them up. Do you know that they said? Indulge my curiosity, Fiamma iridescent, pulir tutto. And now I wish I knew how to translate," Weiss muttered. "That was a terribly good cliffhanger." "Ah, I want to see the granny kick ass," Yang complained. Next one, Ruby cheered. "All right, bring on the awesome granny fight," Ruby cheered. Lupa did not say a thing. She knew that if she did, then the frustrating feeling in her heart would just come out. Either way, the lack of response or denial meant a fight. She was ready for it. "Is she?" Weiss asked, a brow lifted challengingly. "Well, yeah, why wouldn't she be? Why would it tell us if she was when she wasn't?" Yang asked. I was making a joke, yeah, leave that to the professionals," Yang said with a dismissive wave. Kane took the silence as a yes. "So have I struck a nerve, grandmother?" Underneath the mask, his teeth bared into a murderous smile. "Did I call out your bluff? Feels frustrating, right? All those years of wasted hiding, and now well kill the last Fiamma in cold blood." The younger wolf Faunus cackled. "Oh, how fun it will be to see his distraught face when he hears about how you lied to him about his family." Lupa scratched her head. It was Kane's turn to be confused. "What, you mean to tell me that you told him he has no family?" "Look where you barged into, Kane," Lupa sassed. "An orphanage. If that doesn't scream you have no parents, then I don't know what will."
"A severe lack of family photos might also nail that in," Ruby said with a sad nod. Yang reached over and gave her little sister a reassuring hug and Ruby smiled at her gratefully.
Blake, meanwhile, pinched the bridge of her nose in annoyance. These were the people who she fought tooth and nail for equality with. How did she not see them getting accustomed to violence? Blake sighed. "Blissful ignorance," she said under her breath. It was missed by her teammates. Lupa had a point. This was an orphanage. When she was given the task to look after Naruto, she built this orphanage for the sole purpose of hiding Naruto. I mean, no one looks for a missing heir to a famous organization in an orphanage. If you want to fight, just say so. It's either that or you tell me something that will piss me off. Kane scoffed. He may as well threaten his grandmother's credibility then. No doubt being the Fiamma Terzo's caretaker made her soft. "Ah, underestimation. I love it when idiots underestimate me," Yang said with a smug smirk. "It'll make you the biggest liar of them all. I'll say to him that you raised him up to only destroy him in both mind and body. Cain declared boldly, I will make him hate you, curse your name right before he dies. And there goes any chance of obtaining my sympathy this fool might have had, Weiss said with a scowl. Oh yeah, Granny's gonna whoop his butt, Yang whooped. As he finished his sentence, he felt something hit his chin. The force of the hit sent the leader of the group backwards. There we go, Lupa snarled happily. She lowered her left fist and moved her neck from side to side. Popping sounds in both the neck and knuckles sounded like imminent death in the silent hallway. Ruin my character. That's how you piss me off. Cain recovered and swept his left leg on the floor. Lupa raised a foot and stomped on the oncoming limb. Despite Aura being able to shield most of the damage, the stomp caused some discomfort on Cain's ankle. Aura protects a person from external damage. What happens when the damage is from the inside? That is a disturbingly good question, Blake said with a rub of her chin. What does happen? I get the feeling we're about to find out, Weiss said dryly. Lupa's other foot swung down on Cain's leg and aimed for the knee. Once more, the damage was diminished from its true power due to Aura. However, the force strained the calf muscles of Cain's leg. She raised a leg again. Two of Cain's goons swung at her with their batons. Lupa blocked them with her forearms. She took a mighty step forward, which landed on Cain's crotch. Oh! Weiss and RWBY winced at the targeted spot. Niece, playing fairs for suckers. Yang cheered while Blake nodded curtly. Muffled screams of pain echoed out of the mask while Lupa countered the goons with a mean left and right straight punch. The sound it made were akin to gunshots that shook the hallway. The poor goons were sent out of the orphanage. They didn't stand back up. They're just unconscious, right? RWBY asked. All she did was punch them, and they do have aura, Yang said with a nod, so yes, I am going to guess just unconscious. Says the one that can lift a massive speaker with ease, Weiss drawled. Didn't hear you complaining when we were setting up for the dance. Fair enough. Lupa stood confidently as she stared down the rest of Cain's group. The members of the White Fang were uneasy. This old lady had not lost her skill in battle. Her strength was still there. They were still facing the famed lunatic Lupa. We're warning you, Lupa, give us the boy, and all will be over with, one of the goons said with some confidence. It was a newbie who hadn't heard of the old White Fang's generals. Figure's head get cocky. Ho! Are you sure you have the right to say that to my face when I have your leader literally by the Lupa raised her leg? Balls! Her steel-toed shoe fell on the same spot once more. The pain was lessened by aura, but it did not protect him from the sensory overload caused by the stomp. The men winced. Cain may have some trouble making a child with his wife now. Okay. Now I am going to cringe. That's just mean, Yang said, cringing. But on to more important matters. The rest of the White Fang charged at Lupa. One swept at her feet and forced her to move back. Another jumped above the initial attacker and slashed at the woman, who dodged it by a hair's breadth. Quickly, she grabbed the swordsman's sword hand and used her other hand to punch the guy in the face. When the hit landed, Lupa pulled on the hand with enough force to dislocate the man's shoulder. She tossed the man off to the rest of his charging friends and followed with her arms outstretched and low to the ground. The others caught their injured ally. Unfortunately, it was only a second later that their legs were pulled from underneath them. Lupa tossed them up only to throw them down into the ground. She stepped on their shoulder and sent them into unconsciousness with a synchronized left and right punch to their faces. An axe kick was sent her way. She easily evaded and turned around to slam the last lackey's face into the ground. As her final act of defiance, she repeatedly stomped on the man's head until it was visibly inside the man-made hole. Best, Granny, ever, Yang muttered in awe while she slowly put a potato chip in her mouth. Her teammates nodded in wide-eyed agreement. You old hag, Cain groaned out, you're not taking us seriously at all. You know, this isn't even my style of fighting, it's the Fiamma Terzo's. Cain's eyes widened. Apparently whenever he fought a criminal with an aura, he just thought that person was just difficult to take down. Wait, so that's the cutie's fighting style? Yang cried out in awe. Damn. That's kind of hot. How is that anything of the sort? Weiss demanded, confused by the exclamation. I am an adrenaline junkie, Yang shrugged. A guy who could fight like that is bound to make things interesting. So he made a style comprised of arm, leg, back, neck and all sort of limb-breaking madness with the intent to do harm internally. Aura doesn't really protect anyone from internal harm, does it? Certainly helps deal with pesky aura users, don't you think? The grandson did not answer. This is a small show of what he could do to you even without his flames, Lupa said nonchalantly. I hope you've got better men, or they'll just be fodder to him. Don't tell them that, Blake groaned. She rubbed her temple. I get the feeling we're going to get more tedious fights as time goes on. Finished with her demonstration, she returned back inside her orphanage to finish cooking lunch for her children. She closed the door silently, and left the defeated White Fang members to the police. "Granny?" a voice asked from one of the doors in the hallway. "What is it, Rom?" A tiny head peeked out into the hallway, his red burgundy hair overshadowed his eyes. Who were those mean people? Lupa walked next to him, and went down on her knees to see at eye level. The little boy wore a black, loose shirt that covered the length of his body. His khaki shorts were hidden under the large top. They were people trying to look for Big Brother Naruto. They wanted to hurt him. Why would they want to hurt Big Brother? Rom asked. "Big Brother is awesome," he exclaimed in his meek voice. "Oh, he's so cute." Weiss and the two sisters in the room gushed at the screen. Blake gained a small smile. "He is very cute. I'll explain it to you when you're older," Lupa answered with a reassuring pat on Rom's head. "If any person asks for your big brother, call me, okay?" "Okay. Where's your brother, Rem? He was watching you fight them from upstairs. Say hello to my little friend." "Gaw, damn kid, don't piss on me." "I am adopting that one," Yang declared seriously. "That is a goldmine right there. He's urinating on someone. I'll make sure he only does it to people who deserve it," Yang said as she waved off Weiss' exclamation. "Don't listen to him, Remus. Keep doing it," another child shouted above a sudden chorus of childish cheers. "That's what you get for messing with Granny Lupa," Rem shouted. "I want to join too. I am game for this, all of them, adopting all of them." Yang laughed along with her teammates. Their rambunctious amusement dwindled away as the scene changed. Naruto was in the library diligently reading a book about aura and its various applications. Since it was the For Dummies version, he got the idea, but not without it taking some time. He read vocally, which angered some people there. It's not his fault, he needed a good grasp on the idea by reading it aloud with some definite pronunciation errors. "Poor cutie," Yang frowned. "This is why the faunus issues need to be addressed," Blake said with a gesture to the screen. "There's hundreds of illiterate faunus that are going to be taken advantage of." "I agree," Weiss said with a nod as she frowned. "While I am obviously not the best person to take a stance on faunus rights considering my history with them, I don't think that this is good for anyone." What he read was just as true as his boss and Granny Lupa said. All he needed was to unlock his aura, and he could use Cielo Fiamma's true power. Yet despite finding the answer he needed, he continued further. Application wasn't his strong suit. Unfamiliar words started popping out. Word after word swam on by. He had to consult the dictionary more times than it was supposed to be needed, and it nearly caused his mind to blow. His 4th grade reading level couldn't keep up with this. The young man placed his head on the table to soothe the pain of cramming so much ideas in one sitting. "OWWWW. Something wrong, Mr. Uzumaki?" The young man sat up straight to see who called out to him. He was greeted by the indifferent, bespectacled face of Glinda Goodwitch. "You look like you have a mild headache. Will a simple painkiller work?" "Ms. Goodwitch," Naruto exclaimed in surprise. "Aye." Glinda looked confused by the reaction. Now what might be the matter? Naruto calmed himself down. "No, it's nothing. What brings you here?" "I am here to pass the time by reading a book," the huntress replied. "Is it safe to assume you're doing the same?" Naruto eagerly nodded. "I see. And you are reading about?" The woman glanced at the title of the book, and found it amusing to see the boy completely go against his words a week ago. "You're reading about aura. Why would a custodian want to read about something like that?" "It's just research," Naruto said in a panic. "That's all there is. It made me curious when one of the freshmen was tossed straight into a pillar and didn't die on impact." Glinda appropriated herself into a moment of pondering. She agreed that to a normal civilian, a circumstance like that would rouse curiosity from one who had never heard of aura in general. "I can't remember a time where I didn't know what aura was," Weiss said softly. She looked over at RWBY. "Do you?" RWBY shook her head, and Yang mimicked her. Blake shifted uncomfortably. "I unlocked my aura when I was young, and discovered what my semblance was during a protest." Glenda took a seat on the other side of the table in front of Naruto. She sat cordially, and asked the young man, "And what have you learned, if I may ask?" "Aura is locked normally," Naruto started off. "It needs to be unlocked by a person with an unlocked and controlled aura or must be faced by a deadly event. The second one pushes a person's limits out in one last burst of energy that affects the soul." Naruto's expression tensed. "In both cases, the physical, man manifests. Manifestation of the soul is pushed outwards into the real world." Naruto finished the sentence, but did not stop there. "Aura is mainly used for defense and healing. They act like a second skin that lessens the power of an attack, or if more aura is applied, completely stop the attack." Glinda was surprised by Naruto's ability to understand that from just reading it. Maybe the boy in front of her is a diamond in the rough. "He's got to be, I mean he's got a rock-hard butt," Yang said with a grin. Must you? Weiss groaned and Blake frowned at the blonde for her crude joke. I am only preaching the truth, Yang said with a shrug. Back me up here, Rubes. Ruby looked at her sister with a massive milk mustache on her face. Sorry, I was drinking, so. You can't listen and drink at the same time? Weiss asked incredulously. I can. I just forget to when I am thinking about how good my cookies are. Ruby laughed sheepishly and fiddled her fingers. You understood all that from reading it once, Glinda remarked with a little awe in her voice. It helped that my boss told me similar info, Naruto admitted while scratching his head. That in the book really is made for dummies like me, until it lied and gave me these really big words that just hurt my head. Naruto cradled his cranium as he recalled the frightening words that pained his brain. I understand him, Ruby said softly, her eyes watered up gratefully, though she made it into beacon. Even her sister sometimes forgot that she was missing 2 years of education that hindered her in the classroom. Glinda smiled. It was nice to have a one-on-one chat with someone with a drive to learn. Well, it's good to see that you're taking advantage of Ozpin's offer, she said to him. Have you been researching anything else? Naruto stiffened. Could this be his chance? Could he ask this woman to unlock his aura? Will he be able to find out the extent of Cielo Fiamma's power?
All these questions haunted his mind. No, he thought, I should take advantage of her. I'll find a new way to unlock my aura, but could he share a piece of truth to the woman? The young man refused again. Naruto did not see or feel any ulterior motive from her, but he was wary. Granny Lupa told him to always be careful when it came to talking about Cielo Fiamma. The weapon was infamous in its own right, though he didn't know what it was infamous for. Casually talking about it would breed more consequences than good.
He finally answered with, not really, I've been reading the dictionary and a grammar book just so I can have a proper chat with someone really smart.
I say you're well on your way when it comes to conversation, Glinda uncharacteristically praised. Naruto smiled at the acknowledgement of his brain. Though your pronunciation and reading skills might need some improvements, in due time, you will catch up. She stood up, and was ready to leave. If you need anything, you can always ask me for help, and I will try to aid you in any way possible.
It's what makes her a good teacher, Weiss said with a smile. Yeah, but, Ruby whimpered and pulled her cloak around herself and her cookies, she's scary. Naruto looked down. Is it really okay? I am not a student of this place. Would you really go out of your way like that?
You've displayed some surprising advances to me today. Given the right topic, you have a drive to learn. I see you as a student, Mr. Uzumaki. Naruto gave a small smile. I will continue seeing you as a student as long as you persist on learning, understood?
Yes, ma'am. Naruto answered eagerly. Good, now I do believe it's dinner time. Don't you have work over at the cafeteria? Naruto looked at the clock. Oh, not again. I'll return the book for you, Glinda said. Now go. You're late, aren't you? Thank you, Ms. Goodwitch. Naruto bolted out of the room to quickly do his duty. Glinda took the book Naruto read, and returned it to its shelf. Moments later, her scroll vibrated, she took it out, and was ready to answer whoever called her. It was Ozpin, yes? She asked.
Didn't think you had it in you to be so supportive or motherly for that matter.
Ozpin, the woman growled out the headmaster's name. Ozpin's quite the character, isn't he? Blake asked, a small and amused smile tugging at her lips. Oh yeah, and his cookies are outstanding, Ruby declared. I am just stating observation. The man promptly ended the call to not incite even more of Glinda's wrath. Naruto was stationed in the cafeteria the freshman occupied. He was busy mopping up a trail of vomit from the floor. He had a feeling that it had to be John who did this, but it was a bit mean to target him instantly. Ultimately, he didn't ask who caused this. He wasn't being paid to be an investigator, he's here to clean. Oh, Uzumaki, how did your little research spree go? The boy turned around, but did not stop mopping.
Well, I guess, turns out you were right on the money, boss. He said happily, almost word for word, your explanation hit the main points of what I read. The older janitor smiled, and left the boy to continue his work. He pulled his mop back to clean the cleaning tool and restart anew.
So we got a bit of an insight to his pursuit of knowledge and what hints at a future mentorship from Professor Goodwitch, Weiss said with a smile. She looked at Blake. You're right, this is interesting. It's weird seeing ourselves, though, Yang muttered. She grinned when the scene changed. Speaking of.
Yang sighed. She searched the cafeteria for that hunk she saw yesterday, but he wasn't here. Could he be an upperclassman? She thought to herself, where is he? She internally whined. He was her Adonis.
That's a damn good nickname, Yang said with a nod of agreement. Odd how you've not seen him cleaning up after your messes, Weiss said, smirking when Yang stuck her tongue out at her.
Part wild, part mannered and kind, and all around haughty, She shivered at the thought of making out with such a guy. Yang wanted him badly, which is totally unnatural, to which Yang agrees. Something about him just pulled her in. She was attracted to him physically, that she can admit, but she hardly knew the guy, and she wants to make out with him. There's more to that guy. There just has to be. Yang Xiaolong does not easily fall in love.
Wow, you want to make out with him? That certainly says a lot about you, Blake said teasingly. Hey, he's easily a 10 out of 10. Yang protested with red cheeks, like you weren't staring at his butt, either. I was, but I don't want to make out with him after meeting him, Blake deadpanned. I will get the laser pointer out again. Yang snapped as her blush rose to new levels. So quick to deny, what are they even talking about? Ruby asked Weiss while Blake and Yang bickered. Weiss took an offered cookie. I don't really know, but I think Blake's just holding one over Yang. Oh, Ruby nodded in understanding. Yang? You okay? Ruby asked her elder sister. Oh, I am all right, Rubes, Yang answered normally. Ruby crossed her arms, aware of Yang's inner turmoil. Did you find another guy to hound on? Hey, I do not harass guys I like, Yang retorted back at the younger girl's offensive remark. And that says a lot more, girl, I will pound you into your tuna. So you sigh like a damsel instead? The younger sister suggested. No, I did Yang, Ruby interrupted, you were like this. Ruby easily emulated Yang's tone of disappointment and somewhat love-struck at the same time. Whoever you're crushing on this time should not be crushed on in the near future, Ruby sternly told her elder sister. Blake had to add to that, what do you mean by that? I haven't crushed anyone, Yang scowled at her sister. Ruby held her hands up in defense. Wait, maybe it's one of those differences for being a different remnant or something. It was Halloween, and Yang and I went to a haunted house. We were on an upper floor that had the tape that said do not cross. We thought it was part of the props, so we didn't listen. Next thing we know, Yang fell through the floor, landed on her crush, and crushed his legs. So, Yang? Blake began with a wide smile on her face. Not one word. Yang glared at her three teammates, who were biting down on their lips or covering their mouths to keep from laughing outright. She looked back at the screen with blazing red eyes and red cheeks. This was so humiliating. Weiss narrowed her eyes. What an eerie sequence of events that had to be staged. Tell that to the guy that won't accept Yang's apology. He's still mad that he can't get out of a wheelchair. It's been more than 7 years now.
Rubes, Yang yelled indignantly. I thought I told you to not tell anyone else about that. She grabbed her little sister into a headlock as she proceeded to noogie her little sister's head, thus messing up her hair. Dad must be had a field day, Ruby said in awe. She yelped when a bag of chips flew into her face. Ow. I told you to be quiet, Ruby, Yang grumbled. Yang, stoop that. Naruto heard a shriek come from across the room. Naruto looked for the source, and saw a fighting Ruby in the grasp of that bombshell of a woman. Yang's annoyed and embarrassed attitude brightened at the compliment. It was nice to see the girl in red doing well. It made his day to see someone's day was eventful. He was done with his work, and placed his mop on the mobile bucket of vomit and cleaning solution. He placed a wet floor sign on the site, and happily walked away with the idea that nothing could go wrong today. How wrong he was. He felt something step on his bucket before it thrashed wildly onto one side. The immediate yelp of some poor soul caught his attention. The resulting sound of a splash and a body hitting the ground reached his ears. I hate my luck. 3 people stood up and shouted at him. Hey, watch it, jumpsuit. Naruto scowled and placed his hands in his pocket. I have a name. I suggest you learn it before you give me nicknames. Naruto had this situation happen to him several times. He was prepared for some fists to fly. The girls sat up and watched with a disturbing amount of attention. Like we care, said one of them. I am sorry, but your guy stepped on my stuff, Naruto explained. He's at fault for not looking. He pinned the blame of the guy that swam in vomit and cleaning solution. I couldn't exactly just yank it away fast enough without the vomit spilling out. One of them walked up to him, and pulled at his collar while lifting him up. You think you are a hotshot, Sir Mopse-Lot? No, I am a janitor. You're a huntsman in training. You're more talented than I am. Naruto casually replied, by the way, I have a question. What? Who told you that you could touch me? Someone get a grave ready for that poor soul to lay in. Yang winced. She did file away the line Naruto used, though, that was a great setup, for sure. A chorus of screams alerted the first years to an amusing scene. A blonde janitor broke bones of Team CRDL for the simple reason of one of them touching him without his permission. Team RWBY was astonished by the violent grapples the janitor did. Each of them recognized him. It was awesome to see her savior from embarrassment kick ass. Yeah, look at those karate skills go, Ruby cheered.
To W, she was glad that she did not anger the janitor yesterday. Thank God for that, Weiss said with a sigh of relief. To B, he was her target. Blake's eyes narrowed, she wondered what her other had in mind. To Y, her Adonis finally showed. It's so weird having a haughty janitor. Wait, do we have haughty janitors? Young suddenly asked in alarm, or because this is a different reality. Alternate universe, Blake said, correcting her, does that mean he doesn't exist? If he does exist, are his parents alive? Does he even have the same name? Young asked. Those are questions for later, Weiss said firmly, we've got like 2 minutes left, so just sit on it. To J, or John, he wondered if Naruto was overly modest, or did not truly know his strength. To Ospin and Glinda, they agreed that Naruto needed a proper combat instructor to polish his abilities. Videos were captured, photos memorialized it, and jokes were made throughout the dustnet, the headline of one article? Come to Beacon, where even our janitors can kick ass. Now that's a cool tagline, Young said with a grin. Next episode? Oh yeah, Ruby cheered. Weiss was already going through her scroll. I have no hits on the name Fiyama. How about Naruto? Blake asked. Young perking up in agreement. Good point. Weiss mused as she entered the name into her scroll. The end. Thanks for watching. Also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.